can do anything that we wanna do. Long as you got me, and I know I got you. We a team. No in between.
Welcome, Holly Carter, to the real.
Introduce yourself.
So I'm Holly Carter. I am a print journalist by training, having worked at the New York Times right out of college. And then I got into documentary film, and it was love at first bite. I just thought making film is incredible. The messy business of collective effort is amazing. 18 years ago started with the idea that kids need to be smarter about the rest of the world. And what a wonderful way to do it would be through the voice of other kids and have it be through film, which seemed to be the language they all use.
Right, exactly.
And how might we bridge the gap into the classroom? And what if we could actually introduce stories from around the world through the voice of kids that would really activate kids to think about not the difference that we have amongst us, but the shared humanity. The company is called bykids.org. It's a nonprofit film company.
You give a child a mentor and a camera, a video camera, and you send them on their way. How old are they?
Each of the 17 young filmmakers that have made films that have been on PBS nationally and are in half the schools in America have been between 8 and 21 years old. The mentor is sent to them with a camera, teach them the basics of filmmaking, talk about the story that this kid wants to share with the world, and they work to match visuals to be able to tell the story and figure out the arc. The kid is the director, the cinematographer, and the narrator, and the mentor gently guides them through all of that.
Is somebody coming to you and saying, I have a movie to make, I've got a story?
So the best way I can describe it is we figure out what a globally relevant story would be. We are always looking for films that if you were an American student sitting in your classroom, you'd be like, I didn't know that, and it would activate you. You know, the end game is that we make our kids more empathetic, that we make them more curious, less fearful, more able to tell their own story, and that they learn enough about something in a very approachable way that they then want to do something. We want to create civic engagement.
Right. Over how long a period are they shooting that, typically?
So typically 2, 3, 4 weeks that they work together. The footage is then 30-ish hours edited with the kid overseeing the edit. So rough cut is what we call it in the film business. They make notes and they are part of the process. Then when the film is finished, we create a school guide and a take action guide and a discussion guide and put it on PBS and through Discovery Education.
And how long are they typically?
They're 27-minute films, so it's television half hour and perfect for a 45-minute class discussion. Discovery Education has a By Kids channel that offers all 17 of our made films with the school guide. K through 12 all have access to the library and use it.
So when you're talking about the classroom guide, and these are questions or projects or things that the teachers can like a whole little package.
Yeah, it's framing the film, little synopsis, and then 4 pathways that you can use in your classroom as things to do once the kids have seen the film. It's really meant to incite engagement and activity.
And so how are you getting funding?
Our original funding came from the Ford Foundation, and it was all about civics and journalism. We have some big foundation supporters. Discovery Education licenses our films. That's a very modest payment, so they do not pay for another film. So we rely on donations, so being a nonprofit is valuable. We've got 2 really important funders right now. One of them nobody's ever heard of, called the EMA Foundation, and we've worked with them. They came to us and said, we're all about transformational philanthropy. You're an incredible leader. You're proof of concept. You've got stuff. It's not like you're imagining doing something. You've got 4 seasons of national television that you've produced. What do you need to actually rocket fuel this? And we said we need a cohort of teachers who can help us build even more vibrant assets around the films. So in a year and a half, with their incredible support, we have 15 teachers across the country, public, private, who have built modules that will be part of our brand new website with an educator hub.
How much of a budget about, I mean, you don't have to like disclose your numbers, but I mean, how much from start to finish, how much does it cost?
So the films would cost $250,000 each from soup to nuts and all the educational material. It's a nonprofit that people really believe in. So we have a tremendous level of pro bono stuff.
Right.
For instance, there's a post-production house here in New York City that donates all the post-production. The mentors do it mostly for love.
The mentors coming from the States and then kind of going to another country, or?
Mostly.
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 Yeah. I want to go back, because we were talking earlier about how your kind of life going forward was kind of framed a little bit by going and living in Korea. So tell us a little bit about that.
So I was typing at my desk at the New York Times.
How old were you?
I was right out of college, so a couple of years out of college at that point. So looking out onto Times Square, thinking there's a big world out there, and wouldn't it be great to get out there and really smell it and taste it and live it? And I went to my bosses at the time and said, so I'm ready to be a foreign correspondent. And they're like, whoa, it doesn't work that way. Then decided, since the bosses weren't so amenable, I went to the New York Public Library, because that's how we used to have to research things, and I looked for a professional scholarship that would allow me to live in another country. And zoinkers, this thing popped off the page.
And actually the page, because it's not a computer.
Literally a page, a book.
Wow.
And the Henry Luce Foundation runs a program for 18 scholars each year, and you have to be all the things I was. Stupid about Asia. You couldn't have studied Asia, you couldn't have lived in Asia. You had to have demonstrated leadership. And by that point in my career at the Times, I'd actually been nominated for a Pulitzer.
Wow.
And that seemed like leadership to
cool.
some judges.
That's right.
So I won this thing, and here was this, I don't want to call him a poor guy because he loved it. He's like, oh, so now I have to tell my parents that I'm leaving New York City with my brand new wife, and I'm going to, I don't know, wherever they decide they want us to be.
Do they just say, and oh, by the way, you're going to Korea, or did you have a chance to choose where you were going?
Basically, you win it, and then they sit down with you to place you, and you, when you applied, had to make a list of what was important to you. I want to be in a city where I can hike, a cosmopolitan city, and a city that had global importance. So they gave me two choices, and this is no exaggeration. Well, we have a newsletter in Taipei that will probably be out of business within the 10 months that you're a Luce scholar. Or you could go to this dynamic new magazine, news magazine modeled after U.S. News and World Report. They don't take bribery, so they're actually changing everything about journalism in Korea. And it's run by the country's, one of the country's biggest billionaires. I'm like, bankrupt newsletter or vibrant news magazine.
Right.
So I took that one. And
where was it?
It was in Seoul, Korea.
Okay.
So we hiked. There was, North Korea's right there, and
Yeah.
we were able to go to the DMZ and learn all kinds of crazy things about not just Korea, but Asia in general. And it was a wonderful honeymoon.
Right.
We loved it
Wow.
so much.
And how long were you there?
It should have been the 10 months of the Luce Scholarship, but we ended up deciding it was once in a lifetime, and we didn't have kids, and we stayed for 3 years.
Wow. One of the things that is the theme in talking to the women that, and there's, listen, I've got a lot of women that are part of this group. There have been things like going to the public library and opening up a book and saying, how do I get the hell out of here? Get me out of Dodge. And the resourcefulness and the willing to take chances. And, how many people in life just don't ever do that? That's a big, big leap of faith. Was it something that came from your family or the opposite? Because, I'm the one that's the risk taker of my family, and I can't say that anybody instilled that in me. It just was in me.
I grew up in a world that felt like a bubble, and I often describe it that I knew intuitively that there was a really exciting world just outside the membrane, and that was not typical in that town. The way of that town typically was you just replicated your parents' life.
Right, you stayed.
I think what my parents were remarkable for two reasons. One is my dad was a New York City Jew who grew up on the Upper West Side. My mom was right off the Mayflower Episcopalian.
Good.
They met each other working at NBC, so the whole storytelling is in my DNA.
Okay.
They met each other and were fascinated with one another, but platonic for many, many, many years. And at one point, my mom realized when my dad had gone off on an ocean faring race called the Newport Bermuda race that's many nights out at sea, my mom was like, I'm going to go pick him up and propose to him. I cannot imagine my life without being married to my best friend.
Was she worried that he was going to die while he was out there, and then the fear?
Maybe.
But still, but
whatever
just having
brought
him
it on.
whatever brought it on.
Whatever it was. Now, interestingly, because...
So was it a marriage later in life?
Well, they were 35.
Okay,
so
that was later in life in those days, right?
Yeah.
That was like, yeah.
And interreligious was very uncommon. They broke the mold.
Right.
So the membrane was perforated, is what I'm trying to say for me, just in the way I came into the world and the way they related to the world. Now, when we traveled, which we did, you know, I feel very grateful. I had a lovely childhood in a lovely town. I was just always looking for something a little grittier. Now, I
So
say
the
this
beginnings
all
of that foreign correspondent, where they were brewing.
hungry for like it's curiosity, right?
Yeah.
My parents were
But so many people
genuinely
are not curious. I have people
my
in
God.
my life that I love, but it's like they have zero. They don't care about another country or another piece of
Or
food
person.
or a person.
Yeah, I'm like,
No.
if you
Oh,
haven't
no.
asked a question, which is why I love what you're doing
Right.
with this, something's wrong with you. You're
Right.
missing out.
And one of the first things that came out of your mouth about that we have a major mental health crisis with our kids. So how are you seeing that kind of play out in what you do every day?
I mean, the way I get so excited about the work we're doing is that it's an antidote to the solitude that social media pushes on kids. Filmmaking and storytelling inherently connects you to the bigger world.
Right.
And I also, you know, there's a lot of talk around AI. There's a meaning that comes through telling your personal story that AI cannot replicate. It feels very much to me like we're the antidote to loneliness, we're the antidote to misinformation, we're the antidote to AI. We are literally pushing against the things that are making kids miserable. And what I see with the kids, we work with, you know, the young interns who are helping us do an animation film, to the filmmakers themselves, to our associate board, kids are inherently resilient. And if adults are able to support them in being resilient, then there's no problem. The problem is when kids are just left alone in a stew of, you know, it's a depressing world out there.
Scrolling, right? Or
Right,
even
like,
watching, even if you're
We're going to
not.
die of climate change or the war in the like.
Right,
It's
right,
hard
right.
for all of us to get out of bed,
Yeah,
right?
no, exactly.
So the only thing girding against that is a sense of community and that we're not in it alone,
Right.
And you know, I've come to, not to be political, but I think there's the exhausted majority where so many people have been through so many things, whatever it is, in this country and out of this country, that they think that they have no power,
Right.
and that there's nothing they can do. And there is power in numbers.
It is empowering, but I think people are feeling very alone. I think especially kids. I think you're absolutely right. I just love this project because you're absolutely right. It's just to go out with creativity and curiosity and to learn about something and to feel like you are telling somebody's story while telling your own and your experience, I think is awesome. Holly Carter, thank you for coming.
Thank you.